Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the final round of the MAI Bangkok Business Challenge 2015. We are now on the sixth and final presentation. For the viewers on Money Channel, the winner will be announced at 3:30 p.m. Thai time during His Majesty the King's Award ceremony. So our sixth and final team, all the way from Australia, please give a warm welcome to Team Third Step Enterprises from Griffith University. So let me remind the team, you have 30 minutes, okay? First 5 minutes will be protected, so the judges can ask questions after that, okay? So you have 3 time notifications, one at the 5 minutes, and then 2 time warnings, 3 minutes and 1 minute before the end. Okay? So good luck, guys. We'll start the clock as soon as you begin. All right.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. By 2025, 1.8 billion people will be suffering from absolute water stress. And a further 2/3 of the world's population, water stress. But we don't have to wait to then, because we can already feel the pain now. It's pain when you cannot get out of bed in the morning to go to work or to school because you're suffering from a water illness. It is pain that you feel when you have to walk 5 kilometres to fetch clean water. And it is pain when you have to sit back and watch your community suffer because it doesn't have access to clean water. Now, we have mapped the globe for solar incidents, and we are in pursuit of dialogues in Nauru, the Solomon Islands, and India. Our target market, Asia Pacific. This is a growing market. This is a market that needs water infrastructure, and it needs water infrastructure that is reliable with renewable resources. You need renewable resources that can help the increasing energy deficit. And you need water infrastructure that can assist with improving the quality of water. Currently, the world sees the solution for water scarcity in desalination. And 60% of the market is reverse osmosis, a product. Now, we've done case studies into Nauru. They have 2 of them. One of them is sitting on the phosphorus plains now, decaying. And it's decaying because of 3 reasons. Firstly, no one thought about how costly it was going to be to ship diesel from Australia to Nauru. No one thought, can the local community operate it? No one thought, how can we get the water from the plant 10 kilometres down the road without being contaminated? Now, SEED's solar energy efficient desalination system will do that. And we are pursuing a $17.4 billion industry by 2020, of which our 5-year strategy is to pursue 0.5% of this. And in year 5, we'll make $63 million in sales. Being attractable is also being responsible and making sure that we can pay back that investment. And we're pursuing a market in India that in the next 5 years will be worth $1.9 billion. And we have significant contacts. A former CEO of Tata Engineering. And he wants us to succeed with this product. He wants seeds to be in the Indian market. Now, to talk about seeds, I'm going to ask our Chief Technical Officer, Prasanna, to run you through the compelling reasons why this product will work.
Thanks, Nathan. Well, in the world of increasing power deficit and where governments and organizations are desperately looking to alternate sources to desalinate water. Ladies and gentlemen, we Third Step Enterprises have coupled together two patented and proven technologies and have exclusive rights with both parties. The first component is called reflection, which is the heat generation and storage component. The second is the advanced multi-effect distillation systems, which we call as AMET. Well, the unique value proposition of perflection is that the reflective mirrors are made up of recycled aluminium, which makes this component cheaper and durable. Also, the heat storage component allows the system to run 24/7. Now, when we look at AMET, why we call it as advanced MED is because of an additional steam booster module, which makes AMET 30% more efficient than any other MED systems in the market. Now, what this means is less brine output and more water output. Also, AMET utilizes waste heat to run on really low temperatures. Now, I would like to run you through this video to show how we desalinate seawater. Perflection generates heat by concentrating the solar rays to produce steam. The steam then runs the turbines that is directly connected to the water pumps. The water is then sucked in, and the waste is utilized by AMET to desalinate seawater. Now, what's so innovative, what else is so innovative and new about our technology is the direct connection. The direct connection is an innovation by itself because we avoid any energy conversions that are usually required to power those pumps. Now, this system is scalable, modular, and low-tech. With all these features, Seeds is 30% more efficient per dollar cost. And all this comes at zero energy costs. Now, what do we mean by this? Is we are telling our customers that we don't require any power to run our system. We don't require any power to desalinate water. We are telling our customers we don't need your power. Use it to reduce your power deficit while we reduce your water deficit. Now, this is what differentiates us from our competitors. Now, I'd like to welcome Josh, who's our Chief Operating Officer, to explain about our operating module. Thank you.
Thank you, Prasanna. Ladies and gentlemen, can I start by asking you a question? Can anybody here tell me what the price of fossil fuels will be in 1 year from now? Better yet, can you tell me what the price of fossil fuels will be in 30 years from now? We can assure our clients that at year 1 and year 30, your water price will be $2.06 per kilolitre. This way, we are vastly offsetting risk associated with the volatile fossil fuel market. Moving on to our operating model. To reduce the risks and effects associated with a complex operating system, we have devised a simple and effective circular operating model. Basically, our business development team pinpoints our clients and starts negotiations, and our financing team helps them to secure funding. From here, we move into the construction mode. We test and commission the system prior to handover to the client. From here, we start on our second revenue stream. This is where we provide support for our clients in terms of warranties, maintenance, mechanical, and training. We also have a closeout project meeting where we discuss what went well and what didn't go so well. And we can add these actions into the next iteration cycle to drive internal efficiencies and also drive more value for our clients. So how are we going to run this operating model? Our critical drivers are our people. We have 10 years of business management experience, 14 years in the financial sector. We have 12 years in marketing and education. We have a chemical engineer of 7 years, plus 8 years operations experience. We also have an external advisory group that will support us in our operations. This consists of over 35 years of complex project management. We even have over 28 years in the desalination industry. We have a business coach who has taught internationally over the last 40 years, including here at Sasson. Now, the key to our external advisory board to entering this market is a former president of Tata Chemicals in India. Gampathy.
Excuse me. I have some question about the market. Okay, you
Yep.
show us the market value. Okay, the market size. I just wonder how do you derive at that number? Is that
Okay.
the value of the water sold or what?
I'll pass over to our Chief Marketing Officer to answer that for you.
Thank you. I'll just go back to the slide that I think that you were questioning about. So it would have been this one here, okay? So the research that we've conducted, okay, was around about the entire market size of the desalination market. Okay, I did show you before too what the current market looks like. Okay.
But what is the value? Is the value of what? Of the machine or of the water?
It is the value of what is to be made out of desalination.
The output,
from
right?
Now,
The output,
value
right?
From now to
But you are
2020.
selling the system, right? You're selling the plant, right?
Yes, we're selling the plant.
But so that may not be relevant because that's the value of output, not the value of the plant that has been sold, not the value of the system.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And what we are trying to do is to show
Sorry,
just the
sorry,
size of
if
the
I may.
potential market.
So if I may just cut in, bit of a mistake there. It is actually 17.4 billion for installed capacity per annum, not the actual output amount. So we're talking about actual infrastructure, capex per annum, 17.4 billion.
So then can you tell me the total ownership cost and the return on investment for community that install that system?
Sorry, could you repeat that? question?
The total ownership cost and the return on investment of, those who
investor.
invest in that plant.
Sure thing. For that one, I'll pass you to the CFO, Matthew.
Hi, can I just clarify, was that a question on the total market or our company?
Now is ROI.
Okay. So,
Not the company's ROI, but the one who invests in the plant, because you're selling the plant, right?
yes. Sorry, I'm not sure of the return on investment for individual plants.
We cannot hear you.
Walk through a village is going to buy this, or how is it going to work? Well, how does that work? How much they got to put up, or what do they got to do? What do they get from it?
Okay, so the projects will be financed by a local government or organised and facilitated by a local government, and to supply water to their local community, and they will either discount or charge back at a profit for the water they supply. I believe I'm not hitting the question exactly, but
All right, so the buyers, your customers,
yes.
are governments.
Governments or private entities with an interest in local community water development, and potentially as well private sector water development.
On the left, you mentioned that there was 14 years of combined experience in financial institutions between the five of you. Where?
Sorry, I'm
From
an
where?
accountant and financial controller with 14 years of experience myself.
In Australia? What firm?
Yeah, I've worked for a chartered firm in Australia, and then I
What
worked.
giant firm in Australia?
It's a small boutique company. It's a small chartered firm on the Gold Coast.
Okay.
I've then worked in London for 3 different entities, including Hilton Hotels and a London Stock Exchange listed company as their group financial controller.
Okay, so the 14 years just referred to you. I misunderstood. My second question would be, I hear you mention the former CEO of Tata Chemicals, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the 50 largest corporations worldwide.
That's right.
So someone coming from Tata is a person of means if they occupied that position. You're asking for $2 million for 20% of the company. Why hasn't he written you a check?
Well, sir, at the moment he's retired and he's really old. What retired and he's really old at the moment, but he had immense experience in desalination market, and I think close to 28 to 30 years as a former president of Tata Chemicals. Now he has already vouched about this project, and he's willing to take this forward in the Indian market. He's got
Willing enough to write you a check?
sorry.
Willing enough to write you a check?
He's one of our board of directors, but yeah.
If I wrote a check for $1 million for you, you could get the other $1 million from him, you'd be done.
We're at the early stages of development at the moment, so I'm guessing that moving forward, if he sees prosperous in it, that he'll eventually write us a cheque. But at the moment, we have no capital built up. We don't have all the resources we need in terms of the team. So I guess moving forward, once we've got the capital, we'll have the expertise and the base to support us. And I definitely think
Yeah, I understand that because all startup businesses have that same problem. Are you fairly confident if you raised half of that, you could go back to him?
I'm sure we could. We'd have to go through some more commercial negotiations, and I'm sure he'd be on board. And once we developed our team a bit more as well.
Can you go through the business. I mean, let's just imagine that you got the money now. Help us understand how you're going to build this business, because that's where we really make the money, is if you can make this thing work. And I'm not seeing it right now. So please help me see that.
So you're talking about our long-term strategy?
Yeah,
entry strategy?
actually more along the lines of, like, how are we going to make money now? Money's come in, you got your money, you're going to get to work. What are your next steps? Where are you going? Where are you selling? How are you selling? How are you installing? That type of thing.
I'll hand over to our CFO, Matt, he's modelled the finances, and I'm sure it's representative in there.
Yeah, thanks. If it's a question about our route to market, I think firstly we're looking for water-stressed communities that are looking for desalination plants right now and potentially have energy deficit situations where they can't afford to run a traditional desalination plant. In particular, India and Chennai has been highlighted as an area of interest, and the Pacific Island groups. We're looking for our first plant rollout by June of next year, June 2016, so that's 15 months away. We understand that in Chennai there's a desperate need for desalination, and they're looking for up to 60 new desalination plants in the next 2 years.
If I can just add to that. So, if my understanding of India is correct, they're facing numerous problems. Obviously, they also have a huge potential, but they're facing numerous problems. If the Indian government, who's at the end of the day, I suppose, or Mumbai government, or whatever it is, if they're willing to, if they also have all these problems and they were willing to solve this, wouldn't they have solved this a long time ago? Isn't the actual problem that in these very poor countries, the governments have absolutely no chance of actually supporting stuff like this? Otherwise, they would have done it a long, long time ago.
I believe we're going through a structural change in the way that Asia and India operates, and it's a development process that they're now at the point that they would need to uplift their infrastructure, and they're moving forward with that. Whereas previously, even 5 to 10 years ago, it was not affordable, particularly with desalination.
If you look at the Western countries, I believe that every single one of their sort of charitable organizations that are government related operate in India. That must prove to you that the Indian government is not capable of doing it themselves. It's on a very large scale, isn't it?
Can I answer?
May I pass over to Prasanna, who's Indian himself?
So I think we are undergoing a huge change here, and as you know, change is really difficult. Especially we started with solar energy and still hasn't gone through, but now people are trying to realize the potential behind solar energy and renewable energy desalination. For your question to start off with, the reason why desalination plants in India are generally reverse osmosis based is because we don't have the power to run a thermal desalination. So it's already having a huge power deficit now, and it is also having a huge water deficit. What they're looking for is some solution like us, where we can, we don't need any power to run our system. We're saying that we don't need any additional power to run our system, and basically we can solve your water deficit. Just to give you a brief example of how much the water deficit is, by 2020 it's going to be 700 million liters per day. So imagine, they're desperately looking for some sort of a solution like us, and that's why we were able to convince the former president of Tata Chemicals
That's
that
700 million liters per day.
per day, yeah, that's right.
Okay, is that the deficit of the people around the coast, or just
Yeah,
total country?
just on one single city, I'm saying. Just on one single
But
city.
it may not be near the. What about those near the coast? Because your project must be near the coast.
Yes,
right?
the example which I said is Chennai, which is a coastal city based out of India, and by 2020 or 21, they're expecting a water deficit of 700 million liters per day.
And we have had a question like this previously, in that it may seem like we are limiting our markets. However, is this? Can we hear? We are focusing on coastal communities simply because they do have access to ocean water. If we go inland and start pumping huge amounts of water from the water tables, I mean, in India, like the Punjabi, the food bowl, huge problems with actual dropping water levels, and we want to avoid exacerbating those kind of problems.
I find it very interesting to try to understand the volume of water you're able to generate based on, let's say, one installment. Just so we understand, as laymen, would a ship, for example, a cruise ship or something, with your system on the roof or wherever, would you be able to supply enough drinking water for that ship to sustain itself for a couple of months?
How many people would be on said ship?
I don't know, I think quite a few.
Okay, well, our standard project model
Isn't the process scalable? So,
It is scalable, correct,
Scalable.
correct.
so couldn't you answer yes? If it's a small ship, we have a small plan. If it's a big ship, we have a big
Yes,
plan.
but it would also come down to the space available on the roof because we do use thermal solar arrays. I'm not sure if a cruise ship would be happy with having a whole bunch of...
What I'm after is basically, is like, are we talking about a huge installment that will actually produce very little water? Or could
In
you
terms
somehow
of land
explain
size?
to me?
Okay.
I mean, I understand if it's a rural community and there's only 100 people that need water, you can probably manage.
Sure.
But it's not necessarily very efficient.
Sure thing. That will pass you to CFO again.
Thank you. A standard plant size that we've used in our financial modelling creates 1,000 kilolitres a day, so one megalitre, and that requires 1.5 hectares of land space to operate.
Also for you, would I be correct, yes or no, that you are finding it easy to get doors opened in India to talk to you about your product? You're finding it easy to get doors open to talk about your product in India, correct?
Yes, we have found that.
No money yet, but the doors are open.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Would that be true in the Middle East when you talk about desalination, water needs? Have you had any entree into the Middle East yet?
I might pass to Josh on this.
So we've used our target market as India because of the need for water with the people. And to answer directly, Saudi Arabia, cost of oil is very low, and therefore they can use reverse osmosis at very cheap running cost.
Let's don't use Saudi Arabia. Good point. Well made. Let's talk about the UAE, Oman, elsewhere other than Saudi Arabia.
Yep. So obviously after our 5-year strategy, our main target is Asia Pacific, including India as our interception point. After that 5-year strategy, we'll look at increasing our risk appetite for higher reward, and we start working with countries like that. Our main advantage in India is at the moment is that we have opened doors through the ex-president of Tata Chemicals.
So the answer to my question, though, would be no, you don't have any entree into the Middle East yet.
Not yet, no.
I have a question on the finance part. Could you please explain me what cost of goods sold of you consists of, and why your gross profit is now like 10% straightforward for 5 years?
Yeah, the cost of goods sold is actually, well, the plants are provided at a 12.5% markup on the installed cost. So the cost of goods sold is the inventory as we build the plant, transfer it to the customer, it falls into cost of goods sold, and we have a markup on that which fills our revenue.
So your pricing strategy is markup on cost, right?
Yes, yes.
You are not working on like value-based cost pricing, right?
We also have a income line, which is a recharge on training, site monitoring and maintenance, which is charged at cost plus 10%.
How are you going to manage that? I mean, if you have many different facilities or units that you sell, how are you going to manage that maintenance? It's an important part of your income. It's not easy. I mean, you could set up something in Thailand. We have a 1% unemployment rate. You couldn't find people. What about in what type of network of technicians or technical support do you need to provide?
Fundamentally, we're relying on the technical support of the producers of the plant, which is organised through the University of Western Australia through a very large desalination provider and plant provider. We'll be relying on their input at startup, but we'll be separating a separate company out to manage plant maintenance over time.
You're sitting in Australia having a good time because you've sold some of these, they're all set up, they're running, and then a guy come from India calls you and says, ours stopped running.
Yes.
What do you do? You say, well, first you say maybe, is it nighttime maybe? And
I'll take this.
I'll pass to Josh on this.
So our strategy is, after the first few years, we'll look at building regional business centres, and in these business centres we'll have to start off with skilled Australians or Americans or wherever they're going to come from to go over there and start training up a workforce. If it is something to do with unemployment, it's one of the risks we'll look at before we enter the country. So if we have the regional business centres set up, mainly for maintenance and parts, and those warranties are tied back to those maintenance and parts, then we shouldn't be running into any issues.
I'm assuming one of the reasons there's interest in India is because your plan could, let's say, provide water for a village of 1,500 people, correct? Theoretically. Could it be scaled up to provide water for a city of 100,000?
Yes, sir. When we did our case studies for Chennai, we scaled it up to 100 MLD plant as well, and we still are very profitable in that.
Could I just comment too, we talked about the maintenance, but we didn't really cover the education and training. So the education and training is a significant part of our people strategy. And what we aim to do here is to hang on to the education and training as a company. Okay, and each project in the first year, we contribute $355,000 into a community fund. And we
Back up and say what you just said again with the mic a little closer. I missed
sorry.
that.
So each
I think
year,
it's important.
Okay, each year and each project, okay, in the first year of implementation, we put $355,000 into a community fund, okay, which we help manage for the community. Now, it's a complex process because where we were modelling was particularly in tribal areas like the Solomon Islands, and we had to come up with...
Sorry, can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
First of all, you got to make profit in order to do this, right? You're not doing this at a loss of the money that I'm giving you, correct?
It's currently built into... Sorry. It's built into the installed project cost and allowance.
The second thing is education. When you're talking about education, you're talking about the education of the maintenance of the machine? Or are you talking about general education fund for the village?
No. Most of the education and training is required to actually use local employees. Okay, the concept is in making sure that we can actually use the local enforcement
So the beauty
to
of
actually
your
run the
system
plant.
is that they can maintain it. You don't have to go out and fix it.
Yeah, it was one of the major failings of reverse osmosis in Nauru. Was it's technically it's too hard. You've seen the animations of ours. It's a very simple process, MED, and it doesn't require the same sophistication as what you'll find in the reverse osmosis industry. However, some of this fund also is used to actually make better links to corporates. For instance, in the Solomon Islands, Heineken breweries there, and they want to increase their production or water volume so they could make more beer for export. So we modelled actually producing enough water for the capital city, but also an extra 40%, was it, capacity for the plant itself, so they can increase their production. And that scheme was more on a buyback from Heineken.
So if we assume that this is actually very clever technology, in fact it's a marriage between two clever technologies, in your opinion, who would be your perfect partner? If this could change stuff for a lot of countries, for a lot of people, but it will take a while if it's you, with all due respect, of course. Who would be your perfect partner? How could you see this being rolled out efficiently, effectively, and fast?
An ideal perfect partner would be someone obviously with the capital, but also with connections and inroads into governments and also developmental agencies within the Asia-Pacific region.
As an example?
As an example, someone at the Asian Development Bank, JICA, Japan International Cooperation Agency, someone like Ganapathy Subramaniam, ideal due to his, previous connections, and also ex-government or current government individuals within the Asia-Pacific region, which is our first pass.
Thank you.
Let me ask something about the CTO. You said you have 7 years project management experience and an experience with the UK pharmaceutical company.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you work in UK and the 7th year is in Australia or where?
No, I just moved in recently to Australia to do my MBA, but I was close to 4.5 years in UK. I was close to 4.5 years in UK.
7 years, is that in Australia or in India or in UK or where?
The 7 years of experience is including India and UK. Australia, I've just moved into Australia to do my graduation, my degree.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
When I look at your business plan, which I like, mostly, and when I look at what you want to do, you haven't asked for enough money. This $2 million doesn't do it. Tell me why, and you know this, I think.
Yes,
You know this is not enough money. Tell me why you asked for $2 million when you should be asking for 6 or 10.
Okay. Our funding model is based on, the $2 million will cover, I think we put 12 to 18 months of overheads for the company to get started and also allow a a large cash deposit that we have access to in case it's required for tendering on government contracts, which is fairly safe. If it doesn't go through, the investor gets his money back. If it goes through, then we actually facilitate developmental organizations such as ADB or JICA to actually bring forward debt funding at preferential rates, as you know, for developing economies, which could be 1.7% or even lower in the case of JICA, and actually help these communities apply for the funding, so we actually don't need the $7 million ourselves. Does that answer your question there?
Kind of.
Kind of.
Good enough, though.
Thank you.
Just under 1 minute left.
Ask an offer.
So if we'll just move on to the ask and offer. So we are asking, as we mentioned, for $2 million US, and that will cover the 18 months. With that, we see a 20%, we will return 20% of equity for the investor, give an ROI of 215%, investors' ROI of 74%, and at the 30% discount rate, we envisage a NPV of $4.3 million. So that concludes the formal part of this presentation. And
One final question. If you're giving the financials, why not him if you have the financial background? Just a personal interest.
This was just a structure of the presentation. I was going to close with the ask and offer, but as we've seen, it hasn't gone exactly in a linear fashion. So,
But you help put together the projections.
Yeah, sorry, got to cut you out there. Thank you very much, Team Third Step Enterprises from Griffith University, Australia. I'm glad I'm behind this podium, not on the stage. So that concludes all our 6 presentations.
คุณผู้ชมคะและนั่นก็คือทีมที่ 6 แล้วนะคะสำหรับการนำเสนอแผนธุรกิจเป็นภาษาอังกฤษที่กับทีมที่มีชื่อว่า Third Step Enterprises จาก Griffith University จากออสเตรเลียนั่นเองค่ะโอ้ฟังดูแล้วเป็นยังไงบ้างคะคุณแพรคะ
ไม่เคยเจออย่างนี้มาก่อนเลยค่ะใช่ค่ะธรรมดาทีมจากออสเตรเลียนี่จะมีประสบการณ์เยอะมากแล้วก็จะค่อนข้างมั่นใจในตัวเองมากแต่ทีมนี้ขี้อายมากเลยค่ะแล้วก็
เป็นบอยแบนด์เลยนะ
บอยแบนด์มากใช่อันนี้แพรอยากคอมเมนต์อันแรกเลยเพราะว่าทีมนี้เขาขาดผู้หญิงจริงๆค่ะ
ขาดความซอฟต์ใช่ไหมคะแต่ดูแล้วเป็นโปรเจกต์ระดับชาติเลยนะคะเนี่ย
โปรเจกต์ใหญ่โตมากใช่ค่ะเป็นความคิดที่ดีมากและเทคโนโลยีดีมากเลยนะคะเพราะว่าเป็นการแยกน้ำเกลือให้ออกมาเป็นน้ำจืดโดยใช้เทคโนโลยีโซล่าใช้พลังแสงอาทิตย์ซึ่งอันนี้เป็นอะไรที่ renewable หรือว่าทำผลิตไปได้เรื่อยๆแบบยั่งยืนมากเลยจริงๆแต่ว่ามันต้องมาด้วยความมั่นใจมากกว่านี้ค่ะนี่ขี้อายมากเลยค่ะ
ถือว่าเป็นนวัตกรรมที่จะเปลี่ยนโลกเลยด้วยซ้ำนะคะแต่ว่าเทคโนโลยีแบบนี้เองนะคะจริงๆแล้วแต่ว่าใช้ renewable energy ด้วยคือใช้พลังงานแสงอาทิตย์ด้วยมันไม่ขัดกันใช่ไหมคะในแง่ของว่าเขาเน้น profit เน้นการทำกำไรแต่ว่าต้นทุนก็ลดด้วยปกติเทคโนโลยีพวกนี้มันจะต้องแพงมากหรือเปล่า
เพราะว่าตอนแรกยังไงก็แพงอยู่แล้วค่ะเทคโนโลยี2อย่างนี้ไม่ว่าจะเป็น desalination หรือการทำน้ำจืดจากน้ำเกลือหรือโซล่าก็ตาม2อย่างนี้แพงมากแล้วตะกี้นี้ที่ไม่เคยเจอมาก่อนก็คือคอมเมนต์จากกรรมการที่บอกว่าทำไมคุณขอเงินผมน้อยจังเลย
ใช่2 ล้านกว่าเอง
2 ล้าน
ตลอดอายุมันอาจจะใหญ่กว่านั้น
ใช่ค่ะ
แต่กลุ่มลูกค้าของเขาบอกว่าเขาจะไปจับกลุ่มที่เป็นระดับรัฐบาลด้วยนะฮะคือในความเป็นจริงเนี่ยมันน่าจะมีเรื่องของใบอนุญาตเรื่องของภาษีเรื่องของชุมชนมันเกี่ยวข้องอะไรเยอะแยะมากมายแต่เขาโปรเจกต์ growth อัตราการเติบโตของรายได้เนี่ยโตค่อนข้างมากเลยนะครับในความเป็นจริงมันเวลาที่เข้าไปติดต่อรัฐบาลต่างๆมันจะทำได้ขนาดนั้นไหม
คือทีมนี้คือพรีเซนต์ไม่เก่งเท่าทีมอื่นจริงๆค่ะคือถึงแม้ว่าไอเดียเลิศมากจริงๆเนี่ยเพราะว่าแพรก็สงสัยมาตลอดจนกระทั่งสุดท้ายเลยว่าตกลงจะขายให้ใครแล้วแพรก็คิดอยู่ว่าเฮ้ยมันขายรัฐบาลมันก็ยากเพราะว่ามันจะมีรัฐบาลที่จะมาซื้อทั้งอันเลยเหรอแล้วเขาจะ invest ยังไงเขาจะตั้งที่ไหนบ้างมันน่าจะเป็นอย่างเช่น Asian Development Bank หรือ ADB ซึ่งเขาก็ตอบในสุดท้ายนั้นว่าน่าจะเป็นอย่างเช่น ADB เพราะว่ามีทั้งเงินแล้วก็มีทั้งนโยบายที่จะ support อะไรอย่างนี้ค่ะ
ครับผม
จริงๆแล้วก็ดูพื้นที่ด้วยใช่ไหมคะจริงๆเพราะว่าเขามองไปอนาคตว่าน้ำคือ supply จะขาดแคลนถูกไหมคะวันนี้ก็เลยมีเทคโนโลยีนี้ขึ้นมาแต่นั่นหมายถึงก็ต้องเลือกพื้นที่ด้วยว่าประเทศไหนในปัจจุบันที่ขาดน้ำ
ใช่ค่ะซึ่งเขาก็พูดถึงตะวันออกกลางนะคะซึ่งทางกรรมการก็บอกว่าคุณเลือกประเทศดีๆแล้วกัน แต่ว่าที่เขาทำในแผนนี้ก็คือเขาพูดถึงอินเดียเท่านั้นนะคะซึ่งอันนี้ก็ไม่ได้ชัดเจนให้แพรฟังเท่าไหร่ว่าที่ไหนในอินเดียอย่างไรเพื่อใครจะเป็นชุมชนหรือว่าจะเป็นอุตสาหกรรมหรือว่าจะเป็นอย่างอื่นอันนี้ไม่ชัดเจนค่ะ
เท่าที่ผมฟังมาเนี่ยจริงๆเข้าใจว่าเขาน่าจะขายตัวแพลนเลยใช่ไหมครับตัวโรงงานเลย
ตัวโรงงานเป็นคนติดตั้งและ operate เองก็คือเหมือนรับจ้างเขาทำทุกอย่างอะค่ะ
คือถ้าเป็นในแง่ของสังคมเนี่ยตรงนี้น่าจะตอบโจทย์อันนี้สิ่งที่เราคุยกันมาเนี่ยอันนี้ภาพชัดเจนค่อนข้างชัดนะครับว่าจะสามารถตอบโจทย์ได้แต่ถ้าเป็นในแง่ของ profit หรือว่ากำไรที่ผู้ถือหุ้นจะได้รับจากการลงทุนในครั้งนี้เนี่ยเนื่องจากว่ามันเป็นลักษณะของการคล้ายๆ one time gain ที่แบบขายโรงงาน แต่มันไม่น่าจะมีตัวที่เป็น recurring income มามากสักเท่าไหร่ถือว่าตอบโจทย์นักลงทุนไหมครับโปรเจกต์นี้
นักลงทุนต้องดูก่อนว่าเขาจะไปขายใครค่ะซึ่งแปลว่าถ้าเขาไม่ได้รวมไปถึงคือใน presentation เขาควรจะ mention ว่าโอเค ADB หรือว่าบริษัทที่ทำเบียร์ขายเบียร์อย่างเช่นเมื่อกี้เขาพูดถึง Heineken ที่เกาะ Solomon Island นะคะซึ่งอันนี้เขาควรจะเน้นให้เราเห็นชัดๆเลยว่าโอเคเนี่ยเขามี potential partner ที่เป็นบริษัทเหล่านี้หรือเป็น agency เป็น national NGO ที่กำลังหา solution สำหรับการทำน้ำจืดจากน้ำทะเลในที่เหล่านี้ควรจะ specific ไปเลยมากกว่านี้ค่ะ
จะชัดเพิ่ม
ใช่จะได้ตอบโจทย์ของนักลงทุนค่ะตอนนี้ยังไม่